Japan is one of the most law-abiding countries in the world. There's very little crime, and those who are charged with an offense are almost always found guilty. But this image of law and order hides a disturbing secret. For years, prosecutors have used forced confessions to lock up innocent people, sometimes for life. I'm Steve Chow. On this episode of 101 East, we investigate the dark side of Japan's legal system, where you're presumed guilty until proven innocent.
It was a sweltering July afternoon in Osaka in 1995. Schools had closed for the summer. 11-year-old Megumi had spent the day at home playing with her younger brother. As the family was preparing for dinner, Megumi's mother told her to take a bath. It was a decision that would end her daughter's life. A fire started in the garage next to the bathroom. Soon it had engulfed the entire house, destroying everything in its path. While her parents and brother managed to escape, firefighters arrived too late to save Megumi. It was a tragic accident. Or was it? Police discovered that Megumi's mother KEIKO had bought a $150,000 insurance policy on her daughter's life. Suspicious, they brought her in for questioning.
警察は私たちを疑ってるんですか? 自分の子供を殺すわけがないでしょ?
At first, KEIKO denied doing anything wrong.
私はメグを殺していません.
But eventually, she fell silent. Finally, after hours of interrogation, she broke down and confessed that she and her partner Shizumi had done something terrible.
私と静美とで計画して生命保険のためにめぐみを殺したこと、私がめぐみに風呂に入るように言いました。静美はめぐみが風呂に入った後、2人で今まで計画した通りにめぐみを殺すために車に火をつけました。
It was a shocking revelation. Instead of a grieving mother, KEIKO AOKI admitted to being a cold-blooded killer. For the unforgivable crime of murdering her child, she and her partner were sentenced to life in prison. The only problem is, despite her confession, she says she didn't do it. For more than 20 years, KEIKO AOKI has been fighting to clear her name from behind bars. In the face of mounting evidence of her innocence, authorities released her in October 2015, pending a retrial. Today is Judgment Day. Cheered on by her supporters, KEIKO is appearing before an Osaka court to hear the verdict. As TV channels broadcast live across the country, one of her lawyers rushes out with the ruling. The judge's decision is in. What this sign says is that KEIKO is innocent of murdering her daughter. After spending 20 years behind bars, she's finally free. It's a stunning twist to an extraordinary story. A suburban housewife condemned for decades as a child killer is today celebrated. It's the end of a devastating ordeal. But this verdict raises more questions than it answers. How did this happen? Why did an innocent woman spend 20 years in jail? And are there others like her still in prison? Just days after her acquittal, KEIKO gave us a detailed account of how she became one of Japan's most notorious criminals. She says even though there was no evidence, she was forced to confess to murder during her interrogation.
From the beginning, they said, "You did it." I said I didn't, but they never listened. Over and over again, the police said so many upsetting things.
私はメグを殺していません。
なめとんかほんまに。あんたが自分の娘を殺したからやろが。正直に話さんとめぐみが浮かばれへんぞ。
助けられなかったっていうそのことで
I felt so guilty that I couldn't save her.
3人で死んでたら
Why didn't we all die?
そういう思い
These feelings were so strong.
強い。
俺は怒鳴ってるんやないぞ。聞こえてないから大きな声で喋ってやってるんじゃ。
動揺させたりするし。
They made me so confused and upset.
悪女のせいや。
でやってないって言っても
Even though I told them that I didn't do it, they didn't listen.
めぐみちゃんに謝る気持ちはないんか。
KEIKO's interrogation lasted 12 straight hours. At no point was she allowed to see a lawyer.
何もやってないんやら。話できるやろ。
Finally, police told her that her de facto partner had already admitted that they had murdered Megumi. Traumatized and confused, KEIKO says she gave up and wrote a confession, one dictated by the police.
私と静美とで計画して生命保険のためにめぐみを殺したこと。
I thought that if I wrote everything they told me to, they would quickly release me. To be put in that situation from morning to night, where no one is listening to you for hours, being repeatedly told the same thing. Only people that have gone through this can understand how painful it is.
Sumio Hamada is a psychologist who has testified in many criminal cases. He says that during the interrogation, KEIKO's mind would have been spiraling out of control.
She was shocked that she was being investigated. She was told that she had murdered her own daughter. On top of that, she was already feeling guilty for not being able to save her child. So it's actually quite easy to understand why she confessed.
Professor Hamada has studied false confessions for almost 40 years. He says given the right circumstances, most people would confess to crimes they didn't commit.
No matter how many times you say, "I didn't do it," the investigator won't believe you. And after a long time, people can't handle that. So, although there is no physical violence, you can call it mental torture.
Considering your research, how reliable is a confession in terms of evidence?
Because a confession can be obtained so easily, I think it's a risky piece of evidence. The reality is, once they confess, it's not easy to prove their innocence. And that's why confessions are so dangerous.
Almost 90% of criminal prosecutions in Japan rely on confessions, and the system makes them easy to get. Anyone in this country can be held for 23 days without charge. Even when police interrogate a suspect, they don't allow lawyers into the room, and they're not required to record any of their questioning. That means that authorities have plenty of time to extract a confession, and nobody's watching how they do it.
No matter how many hours you interrogate someone per day, it's not illegal. If you want to do the interrogation from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., then police and prosecutors will work together and take turns. And if we can't get the confession, we'll continue until we do.
Hiroshi Ichikawa has a unique insight into abuses committed within the judicial system. He worked as a prosecutor for almost 13 years, until he lost his job for threatening to kill a suspect during an interrogation.
I know we're not supposed to, but sometimes we would shout at them and abuse them by calling them stupid or I've done that, and I've heard other prosecutors do it too. My boss told me to get confessions, and he said you can abuse people to get it. That's what I was taught. My boss and his colleagues were probably taught the same thing by their superiors.
Ichikawa says police and prosecutors are under tremendous pressure. Almost all the cases that go to trial here result in convictions. So nobody wants to be the only prosecutor to lose a case.
Once they decide to prosecute, they have to get a guilty verdict. This is the culture.
In KEIKO's case, authorities had compelling evidence that she was innocent, but it was ignored. This vision shows several fire experiments carried out by both prosecutors and KEIKO's defense team. Again and again, they showed that anyone who lit the fire would have suffered severe burns. Neither KEIKO nor her de facto partner had any injuries. Experts now believe the fire was an accident, but at the time, the police insisted it was murder.
I was told I was evil. A horrible mother who killed her own daughter to get the life insurance money. I never imagined that they could do such a horrible thing. People don't believe the police can do this. I never believed it until I experienced it myself.
KEIKO is not the only one to suffer under Japan's criminal justice system. SHOJI SAKURAI spent almost 30 years in jail for a murder-robbery he didn't commit. He was also forced to confess after 5 days of intense interrogation.
Individually, the police may be nice people, but as an organization, they're pure evil. I feel they're a criminal organization, not just because of my case, but because of other cases of people who've been falsely accused.
Since his release in 1996, SHOJI has been relentlessly lobbying for judicial reform.
The country, the police, the prosecutor's office, the courts, we need to tell them you are wrong. We need to knock them out with our anger.
The police refuse to answer questions about individual cases, but they said they are aware of these allegations and they're investigating. We also went to the government. For weeks, we've been trying to get into this building and interview the Justice Minister about what his government is doing to prevent innocent people from going to jail. But his office says he doesn't have the time. More than anything, time is what KEIKO wants back.
My son was just 8 years old when we were separated. He must have suffered so much. I couldn't see him grow up. I couldn't see him go to school or graduate. I couldn't do anything a normal mother can do.
Konnichiwa, KEIKO-san. Thank you. Today, we're visiting KEIKO at her home in Osaka. So this is Megumi? These few documents and toys are the only things she has left of her daughter. Everything else was destroyed in the fire. Where were these photos taken? Amidst the school reports and photographs, she finds a letter that Megumi had given her on Mother's Day. It's a very sweet letter. But KEIKO never got to see Megumi grow up. She's planning to sue the government for wrongful conviction. But she says money can't replace what she lost.
When I think about it, I'm so angry, and I can't forgive them. The police, the prosecutors, the courts. I can't forgive them. But there's nothing I can do.
But there are people who are pushing for change. Kana SAKURAI is a law professor and campaigner for judicial reform.
The prosecutor's office, the courts, the Ministry of Justice, they all believe the criminal justice system in Japan is doing well. In fact, they think their powers need to be strengthened.
SAKURAI says the government has made minor improvements to police procedures, but it's not enough to prevent wrongful convictions. She's part of the Innocence Project, a newly formed group dedicated to finding and freeing innocent prisoners.
We've received about 90 cases so far. We can't help all of them, but in my opinion, there are cases that I suspect are false accusations. These are likely just a small portion of what's out there.
SAKURAI says wrongful convictions are particularly concerning because prisoners in Japan can be sentenced to death.
Especially with the death penalty, if you make a mistake, you can't go back. So we should never have a case of wrongful conviction.
After fighting for years, KEIKO at least is finally free. She now has a part-time job dropping leaflets around her neighborhood. But life after prison isn't easy. Her de facto partner has also been released, but they're no longer together, and she's struggling to rebuild a relationship with her son. She tries to keep busy doing household chores. But even simple things like grocery shopping can feel overwhelming after years in jail.
It's normal to go crazy if you're in there for so long. And even when you come out, you're not normal.
When KEIKO went to prison, there were no smartphones or Wi-Fi. Email had just been invented. She says sometimes it's difficult to cope in this new, noisy world.
I just want to do normal things like ordinary people. Have a part-time job. Do something different every day. Not have a regimented routine. I want to live happily with everyone. That's the most important thing.
SHOJI Sakurai, who was also wrongly imprisoned, is one of the few people who understands what KEIKO is going through. They've been friends for 20 years, ever since he started campaigning for her release.
We both know what it's like. We don't talk about it, but it's the bond that ties us together. We understand each other and we're friends.
SHOJI is worried that KEIKO isn't coping.
今までだからその目標に向かって無罪判決もらうためにずっと戦ってきたわけで、それがやっとじゃあ無罪ですよって言われて、もうその方の力も抜けて、すごい幸せなことだけど、その反面なんか目標がね、今までの目標を持ってたものが結局叶ってしまったわけでしょ。そしたらもう目標を失ったから、次の目標を早く決めないと。なんていう20年前の自分に戻りそうで。
何その20年前の自分って？
だからね、娘が亡くなって、死にたいっていう気持ちが。
SHOJI has struggled with his own demons. He was only 20 when he went to jail. By the time he was released, both his parents had passed away.
失ったものというのは月日だし。
What I lost was time. My parents. But life is not only about loss. There are things that you can gain by losing. I would like to focus on what I've gained. When I was in prison, I survived by not dwelling on what I lost.
SHOJI believes KEIKO needs a new purpose. He hopes she'll join the fight to help other innocent prisoners.
究極的に俺が求めてるんだったらやっぱり冤罪をなくしてとかあるじゃん。それってやっぱりできる人ってのは限られてるしさ。
それはあるよ私も。だから自分が出てきてああよかったじゃあこれで終わりじゃなくって同じね今獄中で苦しんでる人が順番に勝っていければいいし。
Rebuilding her life will be a slow and painful process for KEIKO. But she says first she must come to terms with her daughter's death.
I lost my daughter. I needed time to face her death, but it was taken away from me because I was suddenly arrested. In my mind, even though I know she's gone, I never had time to accept it.
If Megumi was alive today, she would be in her early 30s. KEIKO thinks that by now, she would have been married and had children of her own. It's a lost future that KEIKO mourns every day.
どこ行くにも2人で行ってると一人でなんか
Wherever I go, we're together, because I carry her picture with me.
助けてくれるようなそんな
Sometimes I get worried being alone,
だからこれから
but I feel her photo is protecting and helping me.
いろんなところへ
So I'll keep carrying her photo so that we can be together.